Yeah, I think it's progressing. You have to understand we didn't have any spring practice, so when you go out there, it's not that expectations are low. It's just just being aware that hey, this is a group of guys that are doing what they're doing off of Zoom meetings and very little hands-on type of an approach and no prior knowledge of everything we're doing schematically. So from the beginning, these kids have been bought in. First team meeting back in January, and they're not afraid to work. From first time I went down and saw them in the weight room. So that's good. That's two really good things, and it's showing with then they're trying to grasp what we're doing schematically.
Coach, with today's news coming out about the Louisville game, from your standpoint, what does losing a game like that potentially mean for your players and the competition part of it?
Yeah, I mean, schedules are a fluid thing, and I have no idea, as far as how to answer that because I was out there at practice, and then this is the first time hearing of it. So, we're just going to focus on what we can control. We can't control the schedule and who's going to play us and who's not going to play us. Opponent number one is Murray State University, and then we go to opponent number two, and that's Murray State University. It's us against us. It's our kids getting bought into the process and practicing in such a way that they're able to overcome themselves. That's the biggest opponent.
As you said, you're still kind of in the learning phase of the process with this team, the first couple of practices. What's the biggest thing that you've learned maybe about your team on the field the last couple of days that maybe you didn't a couple of weeks ago?
Well, I think it's apparent that they care about each other because, a critical part of practice is learning how to take care of your teammates when you practice. At the pro level, they got it understood because, that guy across from you is worth, $4 million and you're worth $8 million and whatever. So they take care of each other, and it's a harder thing to learn, I think, at different levels. And that's something that I thought was going to take a lot longer, a lot more pointing out examples and showing them film and, don't do this, don't do that. Don't swing a guy around, don't lead with your head and shoulders, don't, all those kind of things to protect, each other so that you can go full speed, but, get good practices. They really are further along in that realm than what I thought.
Coach, I know obviously I asked you on Monday how you were able to come along with how some of the roster is shaping up and where you're starting to assess some of those things. But how much closer do you think your team is as far as a development standpoint of that first depth chart where you can start to take a look at some of the battles that need to take place before the first game?
Yeah, that's a toughie. And, really two reasons. One is that we don't know, what we have. So it's been, where normally you go in and you got a two deep and then maybe some backups or three deep. We literally ran first day of practice 6 different units of punt team. And first team, second team, third team, fourth team, sixth team come out here. I'm like, oh, my God, are you kidding me? So that's number one. Number two is that's probably not a bad approach with, what we're facing and what could happen. Now more than ever, you have to rep more guys just because of all the unknowns of who could possibly be out. The old mentality of, hey, rep the ones. You got to rep the ones. They're the ones that are going to, be playing for you, making plays. You got to rep the ones. Well, Coach, what happens if, one of the ones gets hurt? Well, then rep the ones because that guy that was a 2 is now a 1, so that mentality is really out. And you have to rep, multiple, 1s, 2s, 3s, as many as you can do in a practice just because of what you possibly could be facing, come game week.
Coach, I'd actually like to follow up with that as well. Clearly all of your classmates, all of your teammates, this is a new experience for them. But for freshman football players, you brought in a fairly large class. and this is a new experience for them entirely. How are you able to involve your freshman football players in this new environment where not only the red shirt maybe plays a factor, but now the season can be unique as well in some sort of experience?
Yeah, everybody's up. That's the mentality is there can be no talk, traditional talk of, hey, this kid's, it was in recruiting, but where you're looking and saying, hey, this kid's going to be really good. If we get him in here and redshirt him and get him lifting and, a developmental type of guy, well, that's all out the door now. I mean, it's every man up. You have got to, get those kids game ready. You got to really focus with those all of them, but in particular, a younger guy that, you maybe would rather put on the shelf. You really got to focus on the fundamentals of the game, to keep them safe, to keep their head out of a block and their head out of a tackle and do all those really important fundamental things, with him. And then you got to really accelerate them, scheme wise, because it's a whole different animal, that playbook most times in high school, looks like a pamphlet, and then you get to college and it looks like an encyclopedia. So you really got to accelerate them on the mental part of it a lot faster than you would have hoped to.
Coach, with everything that's going on outside of the team bubble, with EKU, with Division II and III canceling championships, how do you keep your team focused right now?
Just, focusing on us, in the day to day and keep reminding them, that Corona is the enemy. I've said that every day to the kids, every time we're in a team, setting, is to, the first day we're all together in a team meeting, we're in the stands, 6 feet apart, and I'm down on the field, looking up at them screaming so they can hear me. And, just told them I was really, really proud of them. Just what you alluded to, they've gone through stuff that nobody else has gone through, especially as the freshman, no prom, no graduation, no senior trip, no all that stuff, and then all the things they had to deal with at home with coronavirus and everything going on, that, hey, I'm really, really proud of you that y'all made it to this point, but understand that it's not over. Corona is the enemy, and, complacency will knock us out. And so that's a constant reminder that is the enemy. We got to be, masked up. We got to keep our summer access, mentality and protocols where we're, in groups of 16, because that's what our facilities can handle, and all those things. It's just a constant, reminder and a constant, coaching.
Coach, how do you feel like your offense is coming along? As far as the scheme is concerned, you mentioned in February that an 11 personnel, 12 personnel seemed likely for this program, but you've also got a lot of skill guys too that you can throw out there and some running backs. So where do you feel like the offense is coming along now, and how do you see it taking a change, or is it changing going into 2020?
Yeah, I've seen just in these, early practices, a good mixture, of where it's 10 personnel and a lot of wide receivers out there and taking advantage of the talent we have, and then mixing in 11 and 12 personnel, where you're getting some tight ends in, which is where we want to go. And I've been pleased really with our guys that we signed in that class, with how they've progressed, so rapidly, and really, really excited too about the fact that I think our coaches did a good job in a really fast, short window of recruiting, did a good job evaluating and getting some quality kids here.
I know we talked about the players adjusting to everything that's new, but what about yourself as far as this, first week of practice? And you've been through this before as a head coach, but I know it's been a while. How are things to, getting back on the field and running things and steering the ship?
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's been a while, so you worked 8 years at Eastern Kentucky, and, had a coaching manual with literally everything in there, and then this hits, and you could throw out, 3/4 of it. It's not any good. There's no manual for this. There's no book for this, like, for example, what normally takes an hour and a half, a traditional camp is, you go early in the morning to beat the heat, and in the afternoon when it's really hot out, you watch the film with the offense and the defense lifts. That's 45 minutes, and then they flip. So that's an hour and a half. Well, it's taken us 4 hours to do what we traditionally do in an hour and a half because of the spacing and the amount of kids that you can have. So, I mean, it is really, really different. But the head coach part of it, as far as, you know, those duties, you know, that's been more like, you know, getting back on a bicycle and riding it. You know, once, you know, you go from your segmented stuff that you're doing to kind of overall trying to see it all and help coach the coaches and all that. That part was, you know, a little bit easier to get used to.
Coach, I know, again, it's early, and I know you've got a lot more assessment coming before, you know, the team ever takes the field. But where do you feel like some of your biggest fall camp battles will come? Do you think it'll be offensive line, wide receiver, quarterback? Is there a specific position that you're particularly hoping to see a lot of growth from in these next couple of weeks?
Yeah, that one's really hard, you know, because you just don't know just exactly, you know, what we have yet. But yeah, that's a tough one to answer. I think that's going to take a few more competitive. You know, you're in that acclimatization period. You're kind of cautious of the competitive stuff because they want to get out there and do it, you know, and that's the whole reason NCAA calls it acclimatization. We got to get acclimated to having a helmet on. Then we got to get acclimated to having shoulder pads on. Then we got to get acclimated to having full gear on, you know. So that's hard to answer, you know, just because of the unknowns of no spring ball and what we have in recruiting and all that, but also because it's too early to really, you know, push the competitive button for them. We've been more holding them back, you know, holding the reins back just to keep them safe and get them a foundation.